It's a prison ministry with a difference. It's the Travis County Community Justice Center, due to open tomorrow. To learn more about this, stay tuned.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Welcome to Austin Faith Dialogue. To this particular edition, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. And we're particularly glad to have you today because of something that's to happen tomorrow in our metropolitan area, and that is the opening of the Travis County Community Justice Center. It's a place that's not called a prison because it's meant to be truly rehabilitation in every sense, including a spiritual way. How that's the case, we'll be learning from our guests today, the first of whom is Trish Merrill, the Director of Faith Partners.
Right.
And also we have the Reverend Robert Clemens, Associate Pastor of the St. James Baptist Church.
Yes.
And we're delighted to have both you folks here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's zero in right away on the big event that's happening tomorrow as far as the opening of this facility. Tell us about, it's not called a prison. Trish,
Right.
why is
Right.
that?
It's a new and innovative way to deal with offenders. We have been working in this community for some time to prepare to be involved in the rehabilitation of the people who will be there. It's meant to be holistic. We're trying very hard to get people of faith involved because we believe that it takes spiritual healing and growth to help people turn their lives around.
Well, now, the whole rationale for the prison system is rehabilitation. It's supposed to be, every place is supposed to be doing that. And what makes you think this is going to be different?
Well, one major thing that will be different is that people of the community will be involved, and when persons leave, they will have places to go to, support, peer support. They'll have ongoing recovery from substance abuse addiction. We'll just have some things in place that people haven't had before.
I see. Well, it sounds innovative and promising from that standpoint. And tell us about your involvement with this. How are you connected to it, and why are you related to it, Bob?
Well, first of all, thanks be unto God for his unspeakable gift, which is Christ Jesus our Lord. And the part that I partake in this prison ministry is that of my past experience, me being one brought out of a prison lifestyle. Mm-hmm. If I may share a little light on my background, I spent 14 years in prison, and due to my substance abuse, but more so due to my hate for myself and for the world. If I may share a testimony, when I was a child, my brother and myself, being raised from a single mother's perspective, at an early age, me wanting to seek a father's image, I always went to older guys for fellowship, for friendship.
I see.
And in that seeking a father image or a big brother image, I fell into a trap when I was about 6, 7 years old. And I had experienced child molestation. And at the time, I didn't know that it was wrong. And at the time, me being a kid, what was the greatest thing that happened in my life, I didn't know how to communicate with my mother. And that is the great error in anyone's life when they don't know how to communicate. So I held it within myself because I didn't, like I say, I didn't know how to communicate with my mother. So about 2 or 3 years later, me and some friends of mine, they were doing the same things to another kid in the neighborhood. And they were mocking this kid and calling him all kind of bad names. And I came to realize that what had happened to me was very filthy and nasty, and I withdrew within myself. And maybe at about the age of 9 years old, I took a blood oath. Many people don't understand what a blood oath is, but I swore that no one would never hurt me again. And from that point on in my life, I grew up with hate. And I felt like my mother had deserted me. I felt like my father had deserted me. And I just grew up with a lot of hate. And at an early age, maybe 12 or 13 years old, I fell off into drugs. And I started using heroin. I started running away from home. And things just got worse and worse in my life. And I used drugs 10 years before my mother even knew it. And one time I OD'd and I was in the hospital and they was asking her the questions and she didn't know what was going on. But as I say, my life was just full of hate. And I was continuously trying to kill myself by using drugs. That was my way of escape. Just as children today, they are trying to escape, but they don't know where they are escaping to.
But now, Bob, it sounds like you're leading up to the fact that this began to involve criminal activity,
Right.
in addition to the use of drugs.
Right.
And you then spent, what did you say, 14 years in prison?
Right.
And then how did you turn around?
Well, after serving 4 times in prison, 4 different times, in 1989, Thanksgiving Day, after Thanksgiving Day, that Friday, 89, I gave my life to the Lord in Los Angeles, California, and I cried out to the Lord and told him that, you know, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know what to pray. I don't know what to say. But all I know is that if you would take my life, you know, I had heard about the Lord, and I had heard many stories, and I had also, in the other previous times of in my prison doing time, I had also read the Bible, and I also went to a few prison revivals. At that time, in the latter part of doing time, the prisons had started opening the doors where outside churches could start coming in and bringing revivals and services.
So you were beginning to get an exposure during
Right.
your time in prison to spiritual experience.
Right.
But it didn't take until that particular, you can even remember the day, after Thanksgiving in 89.
Right.
And,
What-
and
yes.
then what happened?
Well, it took its final effect then. You know, and the reason why it took its effect then, because I was just tired. I went so far down. You know, and once you go so far down in the gutter where you can't go any further, there's nothing else for you to do but look up.
I see.
And,
Okay.
and I just so happened to look up that day. And my life hasn't been the same since. But now, when I went back to prison, I went and I stayed a year. And all through my prison, during that year, I had fellowship with outside organizations. Prison Fellowship came in, the Mike Barber Ministry came in, and many other church groups would come in for Bible study. They would come in for services.
Almost sounds like that last year in prison was a time of training for you to
Right.
begin to exercise some leadership in this regard.
Right. It was preparing me for what the Lord had in store for me ahead. And
That meant that year was a lot different from the other 13 that you were serving time.
and that was the worst year that I had ever done prison time, because the whole 13 years I was doing time, you know, and trying to get out. But that last year, trying to walk by faith and trying to be a Christian and a believer was very hard, because as I stated, 13 years of doing prison, I met a lot of people in prison. A lot of people didn't believe that I was saved and that I had turned my life over. And it was very hard because they had known me.
I see. Okay. And you weren't the same person.
I wasn't.
I see.
I was a new creature.
Trish, have you worked with Bob in prison ministry here before?
Well, we've gotten acquainted as we've prepared for the opening of this facility.
And what is there about his story that has impressed you?
Well, I think he affirms that for most of us, we've got to have a deep kind of turning, a healing sense of connecting to something beyond ourselves to really feel like there is hope. There's got to be hope somewhere. One of the things that we really want to do at this facility is bring in church groups so that the people in the facility can get exposed to different types of faiths.
Well, now you mentioned, Bob, the prison ministry fellowship. I think that's the Charles Colson
Yes,
particular
he organized
organization
this.
and other organizations that carry on prison ministries. The one thing that occurs to me is that the way you describe this facility that's opening up, it's not just having a ministry as part of its program, but it hopes to be a ministry, in a sense, with the whole way that it goes about working with offenders. Is that a fair distinction?
One of the things that we talked a lot about was that this facility, that the people who worked there would value spiritual principles, those that meant each person had individual dignity and was loved by the Creator. And we talked about spiritual principles that are interfaith or that go across all faiths, and that it was very important that everybody who worked there felt like everyone in there could get better, could grow, could be rehabilitated.
We just got a couple of minutes before the break, Robert, and before you leave our set, I just want to first of all affirm just what a blessing it is to have had you share that story with us. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now at St. James Baptist Church.
Well, at St. James, I'm one of the associate ministers there, and we also have a nursing home ministry that I partake in on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And I have a prison ministry myself. On every fifth weekend, I go to Gatesville, and I have 5 Bible studies in the women's prison, which was kind of unusual when I first went into the prison ministry, because I was looking to go back to where the men were, but the Lord sent me to the women's prisons.
Is that right?
And I have that ministry, which is, I entitled it His Word Ministry, because the Lord has opened the door for me to go back. And that's what I really take pride in, because of His grace in allowing no doors to be shut, that I can go back and tell those back in prisons that He really works. Because when you look in my life and when you hear what I've told you, or where He's brought me from, that ought to be some kind of joy, some kind of happiness that if He can do it.
Encouragement, because you're speaking from authority.
Right.
You know? You're not just doing it hearsay. You're saying, I've been through this, I know what you're going through,
Right.
and here's the basis for hope.
Right.
And, we extend our blessing to you as you continue that ministry, the Reverend Robert Clemens.
Thank you.
And if you folks would stay with us, we're going to be back in just a few minutes with one of the persons that's going to be helping open this facility. And stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue. Welcome you back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where today our subject is prison ministry as expressed through a new facility that's being opened, the Travis County Community Justice Center. And we're being joined for this half, along with Trish Merrill, the Director of Faith Partners, with Lawrence Valtz, who is going to be the Community Resources Coordinator
Right.
for the Travis County Community Justice Center. I hope I got all of that said correctly.
Did good.
And Lawrence, I understand you've been working in regard to the beginning of this process even before it opens. What have you been doing up to this point?
I've been working, Rich, with community volunteers who have developed what we call the aftercare, the transitional needs of the offenders who will be leaving out of the Community Justice Center. These community volunteers have been working diligently for the last year and a half to make sure that we have the seamless delivery of services for the offender, a true continuum of care. We've had people in the area of housing and employment and vocational, academic, life skills, spiritual. We've had victims, we've had mental health people, we've had a whole cadre of people who have put together a true holistic approach to addressing the needs of offenders when they come out, and not only with the offender, but the offender's family as well.
Okay, so this is in contrast to so often you hear about offenders who have completed their sentence or put on the street with a few dollars and left to go by themselves. This is with a support system is what you're talking
Exactly. Where when they leave out, they'll have a transition case manager who will provide case management services for them up to a year. They'll also be assigned a probation officer while they're in the community. The transition case manager will be advocating and making sure that the ancillary services that the offender and their family will need once they get out. And I want to continue to emphasize family because that's one of the missing components in our criminal justice system because, you know, when one person hurts, the whole family hurts. So now we're talking about a true healing process for the offender and their family as well.
You know, one of the things that I've heard over the years in Austin is how crowded Travis County Jail is and how it's just almost like warehousing people, and that they oftentimes hold persons over that because the state prisons have been so crowded and so on. And how is this in Travis County? You still have the jail. And is it from that facility that they'll be sent to the Travis County Community Justice Center?
The offenders that we'll be housing are what's called state jail felons, which are low-level drug and property offenders from Travis County. Initially, we will have Travis County confinees and some other people from surrounding counties, but they'll be nonviolent, mainly individuals with drug and alcohol problems. And we'll bring in some offenders tomorrow from Bartlett who are from Travis County. We'll also bring in some females from another facility who are from Travis County. And those individuals will be getting this holistic approach to the rehabilitation. And through that holistic approach to addressing the rehabilitative needs of the offender, we look to reduce recidivism and make these individuals law-abiding citizens. And by bringing the community in, it also gives the community some ownership into a crime prevention mode, I would call it. And it gives them ownership. Travis County feels it can do a better job of meeting the needs of its own offenders. It makes no sense to send these people down to Huntsville where they become better criminals, but we want to make them better citizens so that they can, because they will be coming back to our neighborhood, back to our communities. So here's an opportunity, not only the individual and the family, but the community and the faith community in particular. As was stated earlier, you know, a person has to have that spiritual awakening. Without that spiritual conversion, we get stagnated. But I think now, with us being a user-friendly facility, here's an opportunity for change.
How many offenders do you expect to be in the program right from the beginning?
Initially, we'll have about 500 confinees in our facility. It's a 1,000-bed facility, 300 females and 700 males.
I see. Okay. So you'll be about half full to begin with, and then you'll add to the number as time goes on.
Right.
We have something to put up for folks to see in terms of the place, the address, the phone number, and so on. And let's see if we can have that shown as terms of this is out on kind of far out on eastern end of MLK, isn't it?
It's about 100 yards west of the Travis State School, out on FM 969.
Okay. Trish, you know, one of the things that I'd like to get your feedback on, I've talked with someone who was involved in prison rehabilitation work, and she was actually, I think she was an employee of the county, and was really good with her relationship with the offenders there. But she said it took more than self-esteem, because some programs are big into helping prisoners feel better about themselves. And she says if that's all there is to it, it just makes them smarter criminals with higher self-esteem to do their thing in a destructive way, and that somehow the spiritual element is what comes in to make it more than just a psychological rehabilitation. Does that ring a bell with you?
Well, yes, I think so. It has to do with responsibility, personal responsibility, as well as hope in your future and feeling good about yourself. Just feeling good about yourself won't make you necessarily a good citizen. And we really think that if we can involve people from the community, from the churches, to get involved, that folks who maybe are soon to come out will maybe hear a word or get involved or have their hearts warmed in some way so that they begin to hook into something different, particularly if they feel like they have a chance to get connected in the community when they come out, and that their families may be being helped.
Now, I know your work in Faith Partners has a good bit to do with coming to terms with substance abuse.
Right.
And that was mentioned earlier as one of the components of the program at this new facility. Is that what draws you to it? Is that aspect of it?
Well, that's part of it. I think lots of people of faith are concerned about how many people are in prison and how many prisons we're building and how that population is growing. And is anything changing? I mean, do the people who go into prison just come out of prison and go back again and go back again?
The recidivism.
Yeah, and there's this fear element about people in our community being criminals. And I think lots of people would like to get involved in something where they think they could make a difference. How could I get involved in something that might make a difference in this whole business of stopping the revolving door?
Okay, well, how can somebody make a difference? Tell us some
Well,
examples.
There will be opportunities for training in the community to learn about prison ministry. The facility itself will give instruction on how people can come in. There'll be a chaplain in the facility that will be recruiting people from the community to come in as mentors or to bring choirs in or to do Bible studies, etc. So part of it would be contacting Lawrence, maybe at the facility, or watching for some training, or just talking up in their churches the possibility of taking some folks in to do, whether it be Bible study or... I think part of what has to happen is people have to get past their own fear.
I was going to say, it's kind of scary for
Well,
folks
this
to...
is a very friendly facility. I mean, I went there kind of scared, thinking, wonder what this is going to look like. And of course, it doesn't open until tomorrow, but...
You've seen it.
I've seen it, I've been there, I've been in the rooms, I've met the personnel there. These are people who really are people that believe in people, that people can change. I think that about all the staff that I've met. I feel very strongly positive about it.
You know, in an era of financial struggle and shortages and, you know, from the city, county, state on up to the federal level, cutbacks of this and that, where does the money come from, Lawrence, to make this such a user-friendly place that has, it sounds like, more resources than most prisons would have? What is it?
The state of Texas pays us a per diem per day per offender, and that is taking care of some of the programmatic needs, but that's why we want to bring in the community so that we can kind of enhance what we're already doing. The offenders, during the day, they will be in 8 hours of structured program, be it substance abuse or life skills or family programs or VOTEC programs, and as well as work programs. So we have a per diem that the state gives us per day for the Wackenhut Corrections Corporation, who is the vendor for the facility.
No, say that, Wagon what?
Wackenhut Corrections Corporation.
What does that stand for?
It is a private company that
Okay.
the state has contracted with to provide the services for the offenders here in Travis
Oh,
County.
I see. So in other words, this is a private firm that has connected to the state in this way.
Right, and they're committed to the whole process, the whole concept of our true community justice center here in Austin. There's nothing like it in the United States. It's a model for the state, it's a model for the nation, and we think it'll be a catch-on throughout the United States and Texas as well.
Well, now, we come kind of late into the program to realize this is something unique, distinctive in the whole country.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's yet to be proved, I guess, but at least in terms of its design and the way you've got it set up to proceed, it's different than the way most facilities operate.
Especially with the community involvement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole key to the facility. We've got community volunteers. People are committed. People are calling us. You know, what can I do? The faith community. We've already trained some volunteers who want to become involved in prison ministry. As Trish said, sometimes there is that fear element, but there's an opportunity to address the needs of the family who will be out in the community. Maybe hook them up with a congregation or a church before the offender leaves out, and that way the offender can transition into that congregation and continue that healing, continue that spiritual awakening that he or she will receive at the facility.
Lawrence, I have told you that I knew your face was familiar, and the reason is because you've been on our program before.
Right.
And in that capacity, you were here with an organization called B CASA.
Right.
You're still involved in that?
Still in there.
Tell us what those initials stand for.
Stands for Black Christians Against Substance Abuse, which is a coalition of churches that are advocating for the needs of people who have substance abuse problems. We provide outreach and intervention services. Also, we work with some of the treatment facilities they've asked that we would bring in a minister one Sunday a month to provide the word to the people who are in the treatment facilities. So that's a new approach, a new community involvement, another opportunity for spiritual awakening for people who are trying to heal.
So you come to this not only as a state employee, but as a committed churchman.
Exactly.
And I think that you said that the people who are on this staff have been selected with a view for more than just keeping the doors locked, but to keep the doors open for rehabilitation in the way that we always hope will happen. You've had not just an exposure to the facility, but to the people who are going to be working there.
The warden, assistant warden have been meeting with these community transition committees over the last few months. So we've had an opportunity to get to know the leadership at the facility very well.
And so you can speak from firsthand experience that this is exciting and promising leadership.
It is exciting. I think those of us who know about substance abuse, though, really know that it's a long road back in terms of to get healthy. And the family needs help, and the person needs help. And so because so many of these people are going to be addicted, I think there's a lot of special needs, and the community knows something about that. B CASA group has been very active in helping families, and so I feel very hopeful about it.
And you were working with B CASA as well, I mean, through the shared commitment.
Yeah, I drag Lawrence into everything I do, and he drags me into everything he does, and both of us try to drag the churches into everything we do.
I see. Well, that's, and that's not a drag, I would say, in terms of
Thank you.
what we see as the kind of creative work that you do. And in the less than a minute that we have, I think that we ought to show one more time where this facility is located. And for people that want to say that they feel a call to volunteer, there is the number and the place. And I think that we will look forward perhaps at a future time after you have it open to see how it's going and have you back on our show. But in the meantime, we thank you, Trish Merrill.
Thank you for having us.
And Lawrence Falls, always a privilege.
Thank you.
And it's just great to have you folks with us. Join us again next week on Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Richard Thompson, and peace.